Welcome to Sci-Fi Bedtime Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Welcome to Sci-Fi Bedtime Stories. Subscribe and hit that like button so you never miss a tale. Now settle in, find your calm, and let the story embrace you. After the cataclysm, his humble stall offered sustenance and hope. The ravaged sky of Proxima 9 remained forever scarred. Dust storms, born from the ashes of a galactic war, choked the air. The twin suns bled a perpetual twilight over the desolate landscape. Under this crimson glow, Morgan Reed hammered the final nail, a beacon of defiance. Reed's Eats, open for business. He wiped the grime from his brow, his strong arm gleaming in the eerie half-light. At 35, Morgan was a testament to human grit, broad-shouldered, resilient, his untamed hair a defiance against the bleakness. A worn vest revealed sinews forged in survival, gloves stained with the memories of forgotten worlds. You're certifiable. You know that, right? Kel's voice, laced with weary affection, drifted from the shadows. The older man, his face etched with the harshness of Proxima 9, leaned against a twisted beam of metal. Maybe, Morgan conceded, adjusting the portable fusion generator. But madness was a precious commodity these days. Might as well control the supply. Kel shook his head, incredulous. A food stall? Here? These people can barely survive, let alone afford to eat. Morgan shrugged, his voice resolute. Everyone hungers, Kel, even those with nothing. These aren't people, Reed. They're alien, different needs. Humanoid enough, Morgan countered, gesturing to the shanty town below. I've studied their biology. They can digest most of what I cook. And what do you expect for payment? Credits are worthless out here. A steely glint entered Morgan's eyes. I'll figure it out. Barter. Trade. Kel snorted, a hint of cynicism in his tone. Especially from the females. They practically drool over you. Only human male for light years. Built like some hero from those ancient vids. Morgan focused on arranging his meager supplies. Salvaged canned goods, dried proteins, and the precious few vegetables he'd coaxed from the poisoned earth. I'm not interested in that kind of trade. Noble, Kel said, unconvinced. Just watch yourself. Desperation breeds monsters, even alien ones. As Kel retreated, Morgan surveyed his sanctuary. A 15-foot counter, 3 cooking surfaces, and a storage area shielded by a force field scavenged from dead technology. It wasn't much, but it was his. The first sign of life in the wasteland since the war. The first customer arrived as Morgan finished his preparations. A slender, blue-skinned humanoid with large, weary eyes approached the counter. Is this food? She asked, her voice halting, gesturing at Morgan's setup. Yes, ma'am, Morgan replied, offering a genuine smile. What can I get for you? The alien seemed startled by his warmth. I have no credits. She hesitantly placed a small device on the counter. Power converter, still functional. Morgan examined it. This is military grade, worth more than a meal. Her large eyes blinked. I am very hungry. Understanding dawned in Morgan's eyes. Then you'll get more than one meal. He ignited a burner and began preparing a simple stew, infusing it with spices saved from Earth, a taste of home in this alien land. Word traveled like wildfire. By sunset, a line snaked its way across the hilltop. Mostly female aliens, gaunt, their eyes burning with need, clutching offerings, hoping to trade for sustenance. Morgan worked tirelessly, cooking, serving, his voice a gentle rejection to those who offered more than simple payment. As the second sun dipped below the horizon, Morgan noticed her, standing apart, watching. Her skin was a deep emerald green, her hair a waterfall of shimmering silver. Unlike the others, clad in practical rags, she wore a tight black bodysuit, an anomaly in the dust. Their eyes locked across the distance, and Morgan felt a jolt, a spark of interest, perhaps warning. He couldn't decipher it. She didn't approach that first day, but Morgan knew she would. Hunger erased all boundaries. Dawn on Proxima 9 was a mirror image of dusk, the same blood-orange sky, the same dust devils swirling across the barren earth. Morgan had been up for hours, rationing his supplies, planning the day's menu. His stall had been open 3 days, and the whispers had become a roar. The line formed earlier each morning, a testament to his resilience. Morgan exchanged sustenance for scraps, spare parts, salvaged tech, even whispers of secrets in the wasteland. From scraps of chatter at his stall, he'd constructed a mental picture. Power lines, water sources, danger zones. "Becoming quite the spy center, aren't we?" he murmured, hacking at alien tubers, their taste a blend of potatoes and turnips. Suddenly, a shadow masked his cutting board. Morgan glanced up, knife stilled. Before him stood the emerald-skinned woman from his first day. Up close, her features stunned him. Sharp cheekbones, almond eyes with vertical pupils, and silver hair that seemed to glow in Proxima 9's dim light. Her dark bodysuit, worn yet pristine, traced a form that was alien yet undeniably feminine. "You've been observing me," Sarah said, resuming the chopping. "Indeed." Her voice was like music, her accent turning standard into a sweet song. "You're unique. I've been called worse. I am Sierra," she stated, placing both palms flat on his counter, a custom of her people, he soon learned. "Morgan Reed." He wiped his hands and returned the gesture, his large hands dwarfing hers. Her skin was smooth and cool to the touch. Their hands lingered too long. Morgan felt a spark, a jolt of energy. He cleared his throat. "What can I get you, Sarah?" Her violet eyes, dark against her green skin, met his gaze. "Information first, sustenance after." Morgan arched an eyebrow. "Most prefer the reverse." "I am not most." She glanced around, then leaned closer. "The V-Rex clan plans to raid your stores tonight. 6 warriors, sonic disruptors, armed." Morgan's face was neutral, but his mind spun. The Vrex were infamous, brutes who'd thrived in the post-war chaos. "Why reveal this?" he questioned, searching her face. "Because you feed others without demanding their due." Her eyes flickered downwards. "It is honorable." Morgan nodded slowly. "And what's your price for this warning?" "Food, obviously." A hint of a smile played at her lips. "And maybe conversation. It has been too long since I spoke to another who does not want something from me." There was a tremor of vulnerability beneath her strength, which touched Morgan. He prepared a hearty stew, adding rare spices and a protein boost he'd been holding back. "This is more than this information is worth," Sarah said, as he placed the bowl before her. "Think of it as an investment in more intel," Morgan replied, winking. She ate with a controlled eagerness of one used to hunger. Morgan continued to serve others, yet his attention kept returning to her, and when their eyes met, they both lingered for a moment. There was an undeniable charge between them, an acknowledgement of kindred spirits in this wasteland. After eating, Sarah didn't leave. Instead, she leaned against the counter and watched him. Sometimes she'd tell him things about a client, which group they belonged to, whether or not they could be believed. As the day went on, Morgan found he liked her company. She was bright, insightful, with a sharp wit that matched his own. And yes, he was drawn to her. The fact didn't surprise him as much as he thought it would. Whether human or not, certain connections went past biology. "You should close the stall early today," Sarah said as the first sun set. "Prepare for tonight." Morgan nodded, starting to pack things away. "I have defenses," he said quietly. "Military grade." "The VRX have deserters among them," she responded. "Then I could use an extra pair of eyes." Morgan hesitated, then said, "If you're offering." Sarah's violet eyes met his. "I am." Together, they protected the stall. Morgan detailed his safety precautions, while Sarah gave some changes in light of her insight of Rex's habits. Their hands brushed every now and then, staying long at each moment. The air was charged with unsaid things. As night came, they went into Morgan's shield, a changed transport pod close to the mountain. It was small but strong, with a door that was built to last, and a window looking over the house below. "It's not much," Morgan said, turning on the lights. "But it's home." Sarah moved about smoothly, looking at his few things. "It is more than some have." "Why help me, Sarah?" Morgan questioned, watching her. "Really?" She faced him, silver hair shining. "Perhaps I am tired of living at the expense of others. Maybe." She came closer. "I find you fascinating." The word hung in the air, full of meaning. Morgan's heart raced as she came closer. "Still, humans are a rare no," she whispered, her tone gentler now. "The stories I've encountered about you are quite different." "How so?" he inquired, his voice deeper, warmer, laced with kindness. Her fingers, light as a feather, reached toward the rough stubble on his cheek, finding it strangely compelling. Gently, he intercepted her hand. "Sarah, even if the Vrex are indeed coming, they won't be here for hours yet." Her eyes, pools of violet, searched his. "We have time." A silent current ran between them, a palpable tension filling the dimly lit shelter. At last, her fingers brushed his cheek, tracing the sharp line of his jaw. His breath hitched. Her touch, cooler than human skin, was both gentle and unexpectedly powerful. "Your kind displays a fascinating reaction to imminent danger," she murmured, her gaze unwavering. "Elevated heart rate? Dilated pupils? Is that only danger?" "It's much more than that," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. A faint smile touched her lips. "I suspected as much." Before words could be spoken, a piercing alarm shattered the quietude. A breach in his security perimeter. "Damn it," he swore, striding to the console embedded in the wall. The screen displayed heat signatures approaching from the south, at least 8 figures, moving with chilling precision. "They're early, and there are more than you expected." She was instantly alert, the brief moment of intimacy erased. "That isn't the Vrex pattern. Too organized, too disciplined." His gaze narrowed as he studied the tactical data. "You're right. This is a professional unit." Reaching beneath his cot, he unlocked a weapons case, his thumbprint activating the scanner. Inside, a compact pulse rifle and sidearm. Her eyes widened. "You're much more than a cook, aren't you?" "And I suspect you're more than a hungry local," he countered, checking the rifle's charge. "Special Forces, 3rd Interstellar Division," he revealed, answering her unspoken question. "I didn't come to this forsaken planet for the sunsets." "Colonial intelligence," she admitted, a flicker of newfound respect in her violet eyes. "Embedded to monitor post-war factions." He handed her the sidearm. "Looks like we've both been playing our cards close to our chest." "The Vex raid was real," she insisted. "But this," she gestured toward the tactical display, "this is something different." "Syndicate," he said grimly. "Has to be. They control the supply chains in this sector. A successful independent food operation jeopardizes their monopoly, their information network." Sarah added, "Your stall has become a hub for more than just meals." A sudden explosion rattled the shelter, dust falling like snow. The security display flickered, then stabilized, confirming a breach of the outer defenses. "So much for getting acquainted," he muttered, positioning himself by the window. She took up a defensive stance on the other side. "On the contrary, I find this highly informative." Their eyes met, and a fleeting smile passed between them, a spark of connection amidst the chaos. Another explosion, closer this time. He caught a glimpse of the attackers, humanoid figures in matte black armor, moving with ruthless efficiency. "They're after the supplies," Sarah said, peering through the gloom. "Let's give them something else to think about." A remote detonator in his hand, he initiated a series of controlled explosions along the hillside, triggering preset defensive measures. 2 attackers fell immediately. Sarah, with impressive accuracy, dropped another. "Not bad for a cook," she commented, a hint of a smile on her lips. "Not bad for a spy," he retorted, taking down a 4th with a single shot. They moved as one, covering each other, communicating with glances and brief gestures, as if they were veterans of countless battles. He found himself captivated by her skill, her precision, her quiet strength. The remaining attackers retreated, regrouping behind a ridge of twisted metal. "They'll try to flank us," she warned, ejecting a spent power cell and inserting a fresh one. "That's what they think," he replied, a grim smile playing on his face. He activated another sequence on his wrist control. The ground beneath the ridge erupted in a cloud of earth and debris as buried mines detonated. "You've been planning this for some time," she realized. "I've been at war too long not to prepare for every contingency." A weariness edged his voice, the weight of countless battles past. "Why here?" she asked, scanning their surroundings. "Why a food stall, of all things?" Silence hung between them. "Because people need to eat more than they need to fight," he said, his voice softer now. "I thought, for once, I could build something instead of destroying it." That raw sincerity touched something deep within her. In that brief moment of relative safety, she moved closer to him, her hand finding his. "That's not a typical human military mindset. Maybe you haven't met the right humans," he murmured, their eyes locking. For a heartbeat, the battle outside faded away. She leaned closer, their kiss transcended the boundaries of their distinct worlds, a tentative touch that blossomed into profound exploration. Her lips, surprisingly soft, carried a unique, spicy tang. An intrusive alarm shattered the moment. "More are coming from the north," Morgan stated, studying the display with reluctance. "But this signature feels different. Sarah glanced at the screen. VRX, she verified. Perfectly on time. A genuine laugh escaped Morgan, startling them both. How perfectly timed. It's showtime when opposing forces clash. They watched as the Verex raiders met the Syndicate forces, unknowingly interrupting a unique moment. The night exploded with weapons, fire, and utter pandemonium. Divide and conquer, Sarah breathed appreciatively. Morgan turned, a smile playing on his lips, yet his eyes were serious. We must resume our insightful sharing after this. Sarah's violet eyes sparkled in the dimness. It would be most beneficial to both of us. Dawn painted Proxima 9 with the perpetual blood-orange hue as it broke, turning the dust-choked sky from black. Surveying the ruined perimeter, Morgan noticed scattered Syndicate and Brex raider bodies littering the scorched ground, their gear scavenged. Your security was impressive, Sarah said, joining him. She wore one of his shirts, the size emphasizing her slenderness. This sight stirred something deep within Morgan. Just military habit, he replied, his eyes briefly meeting hers before returning to the scene. Always anticipate the worst. Yet you run a food stall? She moved closer, brushing his arm. A curious choice for a special operative. Morgan smiled faintly. Food connects people. Weapons tear them apart. Before Sarah could answer, a procession of locals approached from the settlement, a diverse mix led by an elderly blue-skinned alien, one of Morgan's regulars. Looks like we have company, Morgan murmured, instinctively checking his weapon. Not hostile, Sarah judged. They bring offerings. The group indeed carried containers, parts, cloth bundles. Dren, the elder, raised his forearms in peace. Food giver, he addressed Morgan formally. The settlement witnessed your defense, protecting not just your supplies, but our homes. Morgan shook his head. I was just defending my own interests. Dren continued. The Council of Elders requests your presence. Morgan glanced at Sarah, who nodded. What's this about? He asked. Dren hesitated. There are whispers about what lies beneath your stall. Morgan's expression remained neutral. And what whispers would those be? That the hill you chose, Dren said carefully, contains a sealed pre-war bunker, holding technology that could reshape everything. That explains the Syndicate's interest, Sarah quietly said. They weren't just eliminating competition. The settlers offered food supplements, parts, medical supplies. A young scaled female placed a data crystal in Morgan's palm. My father was an engineer, she said. These are his scans of the underground. Your hill, it's different. Morgan pocketed the crystal. Thank you. I'll investigate. As they dispersed, Morgan turned to Sarah. Looks like our mornings got complicated. Inside, they reviewed the crystal. The scans showed an extensive, fortified complex with a sealed entrance. A colonial command bunker, Sarah said. Top-tier security. And I've been cooking on top of it, Morgan chuckled. No wonder the Syndicate sent a team. They'll send more, Sarah warned. Thax handles high-value acquisitions personally. Morgan snapped his head up. Thax still? Sarah narrowed her eyes. You know him? We've met, Morgan said grimly. Nick's campaign, 5 years ago. My unit. As the colonial governor's hostage, he sealed his people's fate. Sarah revealed. This is deeply personal for him, explaining his bunker obsession. Morgan sighed, running a hand through his hair. A vendetta inside a secret bunker. Just what my struggling food business needed. Her touch sparked an unexpected electricity as Sarah took his hand. You're not alone in this, Morgan. The lingering memory of their almost kiss hung palpably between them. Turning to face her, he gently brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. Why are you still here, Sarah? Your cover is blown. Colonial intelligence would have extracted you. Perhaps I've discovered something worth staying for, she confessed, her eyes locking with his. Something more valuable than orders. Morgan's throat tightened. I'm just a cook who fights like a warrior, she countered, stepping closer, their bodies nearly touching. A human who treats aliens with dignity when most of your kind sees us as less than. Not all humans think that way, Morgan murmured softly. No, she agreed, her fingers gently tracing his jawline. You've shown me that. This time, their kiss was uninhibited, a torrent of longing unleashed. Morgan's arms encircled her waist, pulling her close as her hands slid up to his shoulders. The differences in their physiology, her cool skin, only heightened the intensity. Their kiss deepened, months of isolation melting away in the heat between them. Breathless, they broke apart. Her violet eyes darkened with desire. "Your species has intriguing customs," she whispered against his lips. "I've got more to show you," Morgan replied, a playful grin returning. In the moments that followed, they discovered similarities and celebrated differences, exploring uncharted territory for them both. Their joining was both tender and passionate, a bridge between worlds built on growing affection and undeniable respect. Later, intertwined on the narrow cot, Sarah traced patterns on his chest. "My people believe that when souls connect across the void, it is because they are meant to change the universe together." Morgan took her hand, kissing her knuckles. "I'm not sure about changing the universe. I'd settle for improving this corner of it." A console ping shattered the intimacy. Proximity sensors detected an incoming ship with syndicate markings. "Thax," Sarah said, instantly alert. Morgan nodded grimly. "Round 2 begins. We need that bunker before Thax lands." Pulling on his vest, Morgan said, "The proximity sensors estimated less than 2 hours until the syndicate ship reached us." Sarah nodded, slipping into her bodysuit. "The entrance is likely beneath your stall. The foundation must have been built directly over the access point." "Hiding in plain sight," Morgan mused. "Smart." They rushed outside to a settlement in a frenzy. Word of the syndicate ship had spread, and instead of fleeing, the locals were gathering at Morgan's Hill. Directing the defense efforts, Dren gestured emphatically as aliens of various species carried weapons and barriers. "What's all this?" Morgan asked, approaching the elder. Dren replied matter-of-factly. "The syndicate has exploited us for far too long. Your stand has given us, what do you humans call it? Backbone." Morgan exchanged a surprised look with Sarah. "I appreciate the sentiment, but Thax isn't coming with a raiding party. He's bringing a warship." "Then we'd better find something in that bunker to even the odds," Sarah interjected. "We need to clear the area under the stall." The settlers efficiently dismantled Morgan's stall and cooking equipment. Beneath the portable fusion generator, a metal plate was embedded in the rocky ground, covered in dust and debris. "Colonial military markings," Morgan observed, brushing away grime to reveal a faded insignia. "This is it." The plate had no obvious opening. Morgan ran his fingers along the edge, searching for a seam or control panel. "It's biometrically sealed," Sarah said, examining the markings. "Keyed to Colonial Command staff DNA." Morgan grinned. "Good thing I made those Special Forces genetic modifications official." He pressed his palm to the insignia. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft hum emanated from beneath the plate, and it slid sideways, revealing a dark passage with stairs leading down. "Sometimes it pays to be human," Morgan winked. "Show off," she replied with a smile that made his heart race. They descended into darkness, emergency lights flickering to life. The stairway led to a reinforced doorway. The reinforced door hissed open at Morgan's palm print. Inside, the command center was eerily preserved, consoles dusted over, chairs angled as though their users were just momentarily absent. "They left in a panic," Sarah breathed, tracing a line through the grime on a tactical display. Morgan moved to the heart of the room, the central console, and brought it back to life. Holographic projections shimmered and locked into focus. "Full power, even after all this time," he murmured, half to himself. "These bastions were built to endure." "Morgan, come look," Sarah called from an adjacent lab. He joined her, his breath catching at the sight. The laboratory was dominated by a colossal machine with clear chambers and intricate control panels. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "A molecular resequencer?" Sierra confirmed, her voice hushed with reverence. "Military-grade food replication. It can transmute raw organic matter into perfectly balanced meals." Morgan let out a soft whistle of disbelief. "So that's why I was drawn to this spot for my stall. The universe has a morbid sense of humor." "This could eradicate hunger on Proxima 9, Sarah declared, her eyes shining with renewed hope. "Your food stall really could have everything." Morgan's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Our food stall?" The air crackled with unspoken promises, for them and for the whole struggling settlement. In Sarah's depths, Morgan saw a future he'd suppressed since arriving on this forsaken world. A klaxon blared, shattering the moment. They dashed back to the command center, where the tactical display showed Thax's warship piercing the atmosphere way ahead of schedule. "He's moving too fast," Sarah said, studying the readouts grimly. "And he's brought back up." 2 smaller ships peeled off, combat shuttles designed for a frontal assault. "Time to see what other tricks this bunker has," Morgan said, his voice hardening, as he accessed the defense systems. To his stunned relief, the bunker was far better equipped than he'd dared hope. Automated turrets, shield emitters, and a short-range ion cannon hummed to life. Colonial Command didn't take any chances, he muttered, activating the systems in sequence. The settlers are still up there, Sarah reminded him urgently. Exposed. Morgan nodded grimly. We need to extend the shield perimeter to cover the hilltop. His fingers danced across the controls, recalibrating the defense grid. And we need to get that replicator running, ASAP. If we're going to make a stand, these people need to be fed. They worked in a frenzy, Morgan wrestling with the defenses, Sarah coaxing the replicator to life. 20 minutes later, they emerged from the bunker to find the hilltop transformed into a fortified position. The settlers had erected barricades from scrap and salvaged syndicate armor, positioned with Dren's surprisingly astute tactical sense. Your people have been busy, Morgan said, surprised. We learn quickly, Dren said grimly, especially with the proper motivation. Morgan addressed the assembled settlers, now numbering over 50. There's a food replicator in the bunker. It's operational. No one on this planet needs to go hungry ever again. A wave of stunned amazement rippled through the crowd. But first, Morgan continued, his voice steeling, we need to deal with our unwelcome visitors. The bunker's defenses are online, but they won't be enough to stop Thax. We need every able-bodied being on those barricades. To his surprise, there was no hesitation. These people, including the females who had once traded themselves for food, now stood ready to fight. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes blazing. The syndicate thinks you're weak because you've been hungry. They think you'll run or surrender. Her voice rang out across the hilltop. Show them what happens when you stand together with defiance. A ragged but fierce cheer erupted. Morgan felt a surge of pride as he watched these beings who had suffered so much now, standing tall, weapons at the ready. Beside him, Sarah's fingers intertwined with his. Your species has a remarkable ability to inspire, she whispered. It's not just me, Morgan replied, his gaze fixed on the approaching warship. It's what we're fighting for, a chance to build something new. The proximity alarm shrieked again. Thax's ship was beginning its final descent. Ready? Morgan asked, looking down at Sarah. Her emerald skin gleamed in the red dust light as she smiled back at him. Always. With you? Thax's warship loomed, its black hull blotting out the blood-orange sky. The combat shuttles detached, hurtling towards the fortified hilltop. Defensive positions, Morgan shouted, settlers scrambling to their stations. He turned to Sarah. I need to get back to command and coordinate the automated defenses. She nodded, checking her weapon. I'll coordinate the ground forces with Dren. Morgan caught her arm. Be careful out there. Sarah's violet eyes softened. You too, human. She pressed a kiss to his lips before, dart. Pulling back, he barked commands to the defending forces. In the heart of the command bunker, Morgan brought the tactical display to life, swiftly locking onto the approaching shuttles with the automated turrets. As the first shuttle entered firing range, he unleashed a searing blue blast from the ion cannon. The shuttle veered violently, yet couldn't entirely escape the devastating energy. The beam slammed into its left side, sending the crippled craft spiraling into the desolate expanse beyond the settlement. One less, Morgan growled, already targeting the next threat. A sudden urgent red alert flashed across the console, warning messages cascading down the screen. Morgan's brow furrowed as he desperately tried to override the system lockdown, but the controls remained unresponsive. What in hell? He muttered. A chilling new message materialized. Human genetic signature detected. Countermeasure deployed. Damn you, Thax, Morgan hissed. You planned this from the start. The command center doors slammed shut with a resounding thud as a fine, insidious mist filled the air, released from hidden vents. A bioweapon, specifically engineered to paralyze humans while leaving alien physiology unharmed. Morgan gasped, scrambling frantically for the emergency kit. He ripped out a rebreather mask, forcing it over his face just as the poison began to take hold. His vision swam, his limbs growing heavy and unresponsive. The comm unit crackled to life. Morgan, the defenses are collapsing. Sarah's voice was tight with fear. Thanks, Thax deployed an anti-human countermeasure, Morgan choked out, struggling against the soporific effects of the bioweapon. Systems locked. I'm coming down, Sarah responded immediately. No! Morgan forced himself to focus. You need to lead the defense. Send someone else. There was a pause, a beat of understanding. Sending Trill. Moments later, Trill, the young engineer's daughter, her skin shimmering with iridescent scales, burst into the command center. She recoiled at the sight of Morgan slumped against the console. "Human, what has happened?" "Bioweapon," Morgan slurred, his words thick and slow. "Keyed to human DNA. Need you access systems. Your DNA should work." Trill nodded, her alien eyes wide with concern. She rushed to the main console, her scaled fingers flying across the controls, effortlessly bypassing the human lockout using her unique genetic signature. The systems flickered back to life, the screens lighting up one by one. "It works!" she exclaimed, her voice filled with relief. "Target! Second shuttle!" Morgan directed, battling to stay conscious. Above them, the battle had exploded onto the surface. The remaining shuttle had landed, disgorging Syndicate troops who clashed violently with the settlers in a desperate fight for survival. Sarah moved among the defenders, her colonial intelligence training evident in every precise shot and tactical command. "The food that humans share has made us strong," Dren roared, felling a Syndicate soldier with surprising force. "We are not the starving beings they once exploited." Sarah paused, realizing the elder's words resonated with truth. The settlers fought with a vigor and resilience she had not expected. She ducked behind a barricade and activated her comm. Trill accessed the replicator's analysis logs, delving into the nutritional composition of Morgan's cooking. In the command center, Trill studied the data even as she targeted the automated defenses. Her eyes widened in disbelief. The replicator says his food contains high concentrations of enhanced proteins and trace minerals. It's been strengthening everyone who ate it. The compounds are similar to military combat supplements, but more effective. "Was he doing it deliberately?" Sierra asked, firing over the barricade at an advancing Syndicate trooper. Morgan, still fighting the effects of the bioweapon, managed a weak laugh. "Special Forces, field nutrition training. Didn't think anyone would notice." "You've been preparing us for this all along," Sierra realized, a new respect coloring her voice. "Just wanted people to be healthy," Morgan mumbled. "Didn't expect a war." The tide of the battle was turning. The settlers, fueled by Morgan's nutrient-rich meals and their unwavering determination, pushed back against the Syndicate forces. The automated defenses, now under Trill's control, kept Thax's warship at bay, preventing it from providing air support to its struggling ground troops. In the command center, Morgan slowly regained his strength as his enhanced metabolism purged the bioweapon from his system. He directed Trill to access a hidden secondary system. "What is this?" she asked, activating the protocol. "Insurance," Morgan replied, his voice growing stronger. "Every colonial command bunker has a direct line to fleet headquarters. Emergency beacon. If Thax wants this technology so badly, let's make sure everyone knows about it." A new signal pulsed outward from the bunker, a high-priority distress call that would reach colonial space within hours. Above, the battle reached its crescendo. The Syndicate troops, realizing they were outmatched by the unexpectedly fierce settlers, began a desperate retreat toward their shuttle. Sarah, seizing the opportunity, led a charge that cut off their escape route. "Surrender or die," she commanded. Her emerald skin, glistening with sweat and dust, seemed to mirror the verdant landscape. The hulking reptilian commander of the Syndicate threw down his weapon in utter defeat. "Thax will have your heads for this," he roared. "I don't think so," Sarah responded coolly, gesturing towards the heavens. The warship above, its metallic hide scarred, was struggling to turn, desperate to escape. Automated defenses had crippled its engines, and with its ground force captured, Thax, in his infinite cruelty, had made a ruthless choice: abandon his crew. As the liberated settlers rounded up their prisoners, Sarah raced back to the bunker. There, she found Morgan, pale but steady, guiding Trill as she locked down the remaining Syndicate systems. "We did it," Sarah breathed, her voice thick with relief. Morgan pulled her close, his strength returning with each passing second. "You did it. I just lay here, getting poisoned." "Your food did it," she playfully corrected, pressing closer. "Your secret ingredients made all the difference." Their eyes locked, and in that shared moment of victory, a connection deeper than mere attraction sparked to life. It was a recognition of the future they could forge together in this unexpected sanctuary. A knowing smile graced Morgan's lips as he thought about his food stall. 2 weeks after the battle, Morgan's simple stall had transformed into something extraordinary. The once desolate hilltop buzzed with activity as settlers, full of hope, worked to expand what they now called a Reed's Haven. The bunker's food replicator churned out sustenance around the clock, banishing hunger from the settlement. Morgan had trained a dedicated staff of locals to operate it, firmly believing that everyone deserved an equal share, regardless of their ability to repay. "You're ruining the economy," Kel teased, helping Morgan mount a new communications array atop the hill. The old human had returned 3 days after the battle, deeply impressed by the changes he witnessed. "Can't ruin what didn't exist," Morgan retorted, tightening a vital connection. "Besides, there's more to life than just commerce." Unlike emerald-skinned intelligence officers, Kel's raised eyebrow held a wealth of suggestion. A faint blush warmed Morgan's sun-kissed face. His relationship with Sarah had blossomed in the days following the battle. Their nights together were a passionate exploration of their differences and their unexpected similarities. What had started as simple attraction had evolved into something deeper, a bond neither had anticipated finding on this forgotten planet. "She's something special," Morgan finally admitted, his voice soft. "Special enough to make you ignore that." Kel pointed towards the sky, where a faint glimmer pierced the dust clouds. A colonial cruiser, finally responding to their emergency beacon. It had arrived that morning, establishing communication, yet remaining cautiously in orbit, assessing the volatile situation. "They want me back," Morgan said quietly, the words heavy with resignation. Lieutenant Commander Hale made it clear. The war is escalating. They need experienced operators. "And what do you need?" Kel pressed, his gaze unwavering. Before Morgan could respond, Trill came rushing up the hill, her iridescent scales practically shimmering with excitement. "Morgan, the replicator found something." She thrust a data pad into his hands. "We were analyzing those soil samples you collected, and the system identified terraforming compounds." Morgan scanned the data, a furrow creasing his brow. "The replicator can synthesize these?" "In theory, yes," Trill nodded, her enthusiasm overflowing. "It would take time and energy, but the bunker's power core is still at 87% capacity after all these years. We could start healing the planet, beginning with the area around the settlement." "From feeding people to feeding the planet itself," Kel mused, a hint of awe in his voice. "You don't do anything small, do you, Reed?" Morgan was still absorbing this incredible revelation when his comm unit chirped urgently. It was Dren, his voice unusually frantic. "Human Morgan, we have detected multiple incoming vessels, not colonial signatures." "Mercenaries," Morgan realized instantly, a cold dread washing over him. Thax must have put a price on their heads. He sprinted towards the command center, Kel and Trill close behind. Sarah was already there, her silver hair pulled back, her focus intense as she studied the tactical display. She looked up as Morgan entered, her violet eyes meeting his, reflecting a mixture of concern and fierce determination. 6 ships, various classes, she reported, her voice calm and steady. All heavily armed. ETA 40 minutes. "And the colonial cruiser?" Morgan asked, his heart pounding. "Still in orbit. They're hailing us now." Morgan activated the comm, and the stern face of Lieutenant Commander Hale appeared on the screen. A woman in her late 40s, with close-cropped gray hair, and the hardened gaze of someone who'd witnessed too much conflict. "Reed, we're picking up multiple hostile signatures approaching your position. Looks like you've stirred up a hornet's nest." "Syndicate reprisal," Morgan confirmed grimly. "They want the bunker technology." "And you?" Sarah added softly, standing beside him. Hale's eyes narrowed. "We can extract you immediately. The technology as well. This settlement isn't defensible against that many hostiles." Morgan felt the crushing weight of the decision bearing down on him. Return to colonial service, to the life he once knew, fighting in an endless war, or stand his ground and defend what they had built here. He looked at what he'd forged here with these resilient souls, their hopes intertwined with his. And Sarah? What about the scattered settlers, clinging to life? He questioned Hale. "Not our priority," she responded, a shadow of unease flickering across her face. "Our mandate is colonial assets and personnel." Morgan's gaze swept the command center, met Trill's hopeful anticipation, Kel's knowing confidence, Sarah's quiet fortitude. He envisioned the terraforming potential, the chance to breathe life back into this wounded world. "With utmost respect, Commander," he declared, his voice firm, "I must decline extraction. However, I urgently require fire support." Hale's eyebrow arched in disbelief. "You're defying direct orders, Reed?" "I'm requesting a crucial reassignment," Morgan countered, unwavering. "This very bunker constitutes a vital colonial asset. It warrants our full protection." And these people, he gestured towards the settlers, visible through the reinforced window, they have earned our unwavering support. A tense silence hung in the air as Hale weighed his words, her gaze intense. Finally, she gave a curt nod. I will need to consult command. In the interim, we'll maintain our present position. As the communication ended, Sarah gently moved to Morgan's side, her touch a comforting reassurance. You're staying, she breathed, her voice soft. I'm staying, he affirmed, turning to face her completely, his eyes locked with hers. This place, these people, you, it has become my home. The emotion swirling in her violet eyes set his heart ablaze. She rose on tiptoe, her lips meeting his in a kiss that spoke volumes, surpassing mere words. Then we have plans to finalize, she murmured against his mouth, and mercenaries to greet. And a planet to heal, Morgan added, his mind returning to the terraforming compound's potential. They convened the settlement's leaders in the command center, outlining their defensive strategy. The bunker's automated systems would serve as their primary defense, but everyone had a role to play, a commitment to uphold. The mercenaries are coming for me and the technology we possess, Morgan explained, but they will have to come through all of us to get either. They'll find we're no longer the desperate, starving beings they expect, Dren added, his expression resolute. As the meeting adjourned, Trill approached, radiating excitement. The terraforming compounds are even more promising than we initially estimated, she reported. With some tweaks to the replicator, we could initiate atmospheric processing within mere days. First we survive the mercenary onslaught, Morgan reminded her. Then we save this planet. That night, as the final battle preparations were underway, Morgan and Sarah found a brief moment of solitude in their quarters, the former storage room they'd transformed into a cozy refuge with salvaged furnishings. I never anticipated this, Sarah confessed as they lay together, her emerald skin a striking contrast against the simple white sheets. When I was assigned to Proxima 9, I expected a routine mission. Observe, report, move on. Morgan traced the delicate curve of her shoulder, marveling at the natural ease of their connection, despite their different origins. And I thought I would simply be feeding people, not igniting a revolution, fighting off mercenaries and terraforming a planet. Humans, Sarah chuckled, her fingers lightly dancing across his chest, always exceeding expectations. Their lovemaking that night was a tender yet passionate celebration of life amidst impending danger. It was a promise of a future worth fighting for. As dawn broke over Proxima 9, Morgan stood at the precipice of the hilltop, watching the blood-orange sky. Soon it would be filled with mercenary ships raining down violence and destruction. But for the first time since arriving on this desolate world, he felt a surprising emotion blooming within him. Hope. The mercenary ships descended through Proxima 9's dusty atmosphere like predatory birds, their weapon systems already primed. Morgan watched from the bunker's command center, his jaw firm with determination, as he finalized the defense protocols. 6 minutes to engagement range, Trill reported, her scaled fingers nimbly maneuvering across the tactical console. Colonial cruiser is hailing us again, Sarah added from her station. Lieutenant Commander Hale's face materialized on the main screen, her expression unreadable as always. Reed, I've consulted with command. Your reassignment request has been conditionally approved. Morgan's eyebrow arched in surprise. Conditionally? We are designating Reed's Haven as an official colonial outpost, with you serving as its administrator. A flicker of a smile touched Hale's stern features. Apparently, someone at HQ was impressed by your innovative approach to post-war reconstruction. And the current situation, Morgan pressed, gesturing towards the rapidly approaching hostiles. We've been authorized to provide full support. Hale's smile widened, just a fraction. Consider this a welcome to colonial governance. The tactical display shifted as the cruiser broke orbit, swiftly descending towards the mercenary formation. Its superior firepower immediately disrupted their strategy, forcing the mercenary ships to scatter. They're breaking formation, Trill announced, her voice filled with excitement. 3 ships are retreating. The others are still incoming, Sarah warned, her voice laced with urgency. These must be the most desperate or the best armed among them. Morgan's gaze hardened as he studied the tactical display, tracking the intercepting ships' paths. They're trying to outflank us, using the ridge to shield themselves from the cruiser. He turned to Kell, a spark of grim determination in his eyes. It's time for our little secret. A predatory grin stretched across Kell's face. Finally. He crossed to a console concealed behind a cleverly hidden panel, a relic of a bygone era Morgan had unearthed. "What's that?" Siri asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern as she watched Kel power up the system. "Gravitational disruptor," Morgan stated. "Colonial Command's abandoned experimental tech. It creates localized gravity wells, like miniature black holes, that momentarily rip ships apart." Sarah's silver eyebrow arched, her arms crossed. "And you were saving this because—" Morgan shrugged. "It's volatile, a one-shot deal. It drains the bunker's core, shutting down everything including life support. So we'll be defenseless and breathless," Dren said dryly. "For 90 seconds, Morgan confirmed. "But those ships will be debris." The decision was swift. As the mercenary ships closed in, Morgan ordered all non-essential personnel evacuated. Only he, Siri, and Kel would remain. "Firing in 3, 2, 1, Kel announced. The bunker plunged into darkness as the experimental weapon absorbed all available power. At first, nothing happened. Then, through the viewport, they saw it. A shimmering distortion above the ridge, like heat waves, but far more intense. It swelled rapidly, engulfing the mercenary ships. Metal groaned and shrieked as the artificial gravity well seized them. One by one, they crumpled, their hulls imploding before the entire mass vanished in a blinding flash. "Holy," Kel breathed, awestruck. Emergency chemical lights cast an eerie pall as they waited for the systems to reboot, the silence amplifying their vulnerability. Morgan reached for Sarah's hand in the dimness, his touch reassuring. 90 seconds, he reminded her as the air grew heavy. At 87 seconds, the lights flickered back on. The environmental systems whirred to life, circulating fresh air. The tactical display re-engaged. "Movement," Trill called out. "Survivors, and they're hailing us." A grizzled mercenary captain, a reptilian alien with scarred scales and cybernetic enhancements, appeared on the screen. "That was impressive," he rasped. "Never seen anything like it. Surrender or join the wreckage." Morgan's voice was cold. "Surrender," he echoed. "With what ship? You just obliterated mine." The captain paused, considering. "I've got 30 crew, engineers, medics, security. Fax's credits ain't worth dying for." "You're offering to switch sides?" Sarah asked skeptically. "I'm offering to survive," he corrected, "and maybe build something for once. Gets old, tearing things down." Morgan exchanged a look with Siri, who nodded subtly. "Report to the settlement perimeter for processing," Morgan instructed. "Weapons confiscated. Probation, but everyone works, everyone eats." "Sounds fair," the mercenary agreed. "Captain Dorn at your service." As the transmission ended, Hale hailed them. "Report. Situation contained. Threat neutralized," Morgan confirmed. "Survivors requesting asylum." Hale's eyebrows shot up. "Mercenaries wanting to settle down? That's a first." "This place changes people," Morgan replied, glancing at Sarah with a faint smile. 6 months later, Morgan stood on the hilltop, the transformation breathtaking. The terraforming compounds had exceeded all expectations. Lush greenery surrounded Reed's Haven, hardy plants thriving in the recovering soil. The dust clouds had thinned, revealing the vibrant blue of the sky. The settlement had exploded, the former mercenaries proving to be skilled builders and engineers. Dorn now served as his chief of security, his syndicate knowledge invaluable for trade routes. And in the heart of it all, where his food stall had once stood, was Rose Reed's, a restaurant and community center. The replicator provided basic nutrition, but Morgan S. He meticulously crafted delicious meals using the settlement's fresh hydroponic bounty. "Admiring your skill," Sarah's voice drew him from his work. She embraced him from behind, her warmth a comfort against his back. "Our skill," he gently corrected, turning to face her. The months had reshaped her as well. Her silver hair flowed longer, often interwoven with vibrant threads, gifts from grateful settlers. Her emerald skin pulsed with a radiant health and joy. "The colonial liaison is here," she announced softly. "Lieutenant Commander Hale wishes to discuss expanding the terraforming effort into the eastern regions." Morgan nodded, his thoughts elsewhere. "I'll join you shortly." As Sarah turned to leave, he reached for her hand, a sudden wave of vulnerability washing over him. "Wait, there's something I desperately need to ask." From his pocket, he produced a small, meaningful object, a ring carefully forged from a fragment of the first mercenary ship they had vanquished together. The metal gleamed like captured starlight. "I know it's not traditional in your culture," he began, his voice laced with uncertainty. "But in mine, it represents an unbreakable bond." Sarah's violet eyes widened, softening with deep understanding and burgeoning emotion. Are you asking me to be your life partner, Morgan Reed? My wife, he clarified, his voice filled with tender hope. Yes. Her answer wasn't spoken, but conveyed by a kiss so profound, it banished all doubt. Breaking apart, breathless, she gently slid the ring onto her finger. It's perfect, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I had a little help, Morgan confessed sheepishly. Trill has been acquiring your finger measurements while you slept. Sarah laughed, the sound like a melody that resonated within his soul. Sneaky human. Hand in hand, they walked back toward the settlement, their steps guided by the shared future they were diligently creating. As they passed Reed's, Morgan's gaze lingered on the sign above the entrance, where someone had playfully added a subtitle that never failed to bring a smile to his face. Reed's After the Apocalypse, my food stall has everything. And looking at Sarah, at the flourishing community they nurtured, at the slowly healing world unfolding beneath their feet, Morgan knew it was undeniably true. He had everything he had ever yearned for. And it all stemmed from a simple act of kindness extended to a hungry alien girl. You know, Sarah mused thoughtfully as they walked, I never properly thanked you for that first meal. Morgan grinned, recalling their humble beginning. If I remember correctly, you offered with considerable enthusiasm. And you refused, she playfully reminded him, her violet eyes sparkling with mischievousness. Said I didn't need to do that. Best decision I ever made, Morgan replied, drawing her close for another lingering kiss. Reed's Haven continued its remarkable expansion, a vibrant testament to human compassion, alien resilience, and the timeless truth that the journey to reclaim a world can begin with the simple act of feeding a hungry stranger.